A sudden flash of light rips across the sky, and in the blink of an eye, a bolt of lightning strikes an airplane thousands of feet above the ground. For most of us, it's the ultimate nightmare: fire, explosions, chaos. But is that really what happens? Or is the truth far stranger, and safer, than we imagine? Before we dive into the electrifying truth, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button to keep these incredible aviation stories flying high. Now, let's step into the storm and witness what it's really like when lightning meets metal wings. The cabin was dim, lit only by the soft glow of reading lights and the occasional flicker from the overhead panels. Outside the windows, there was nothing but darkness, a black canvas stretching endlessly in every direction. At 35,000 feet, the world below was hidden under a blanket of thick storm clouds, and above, the heavens were alive with turbulence. The first rumble of thunder was faint, almost gentle, like distant drums rolling somewhere beyond the horizon. A few passengers stirred in their seats, glancing nervously at the windows. The flight attendants, moving gracefully down the aisle, carried on as though nothing unusual was happening. They had seen storms before, they knew the script. But for those strapped into their seats, far from solid ground, every sound carried weight. Then, it happened. A flash, blinding and instantaneous, filled the cabin with an eerie white glow. For a split second, it felt as if the entire plane had been swallowed by light. Passengers gasped. A child cried out. The lights above flickered and dimmed, casting shadows across the rows of startled faces. And then came the sound, a violent crack, sharp and guttural, as if the sky itself had split open. The aircraft shuddered, a tremor running along its fuselage. Coffee cups rattled on tray tables, seatbelts tightened against torsos, and the engines roared, unfazed by the chaos outside. For many on board, those seconds stretched into eternity. The thought was unspoken, but universal: we've been struck. Inside the cockpit, however, the reaction was far calmer. The pilots exchanged a quick glance, their hands steady on the controls. Warning lights blinked briefly across the instrument panel, only to vanish just as quickly. Training and experience spoke louder than fear: this was not an emergency. It was an expected risk, one that every aircraft is designed to withstand. Yet, for the passengers, reality was less comforting. A bolt of lightning, powerful enough to ignite trees or shatter buildings on the ground, had just coursed through the body of the metal tube carrying them across the sky. The silence that followed was almost deafening, broken only by the low hum of the engines and the scattered whispers of those trying to reassure themselves. Questions lingered in the tense air: what just happened? Did the plane take damage? Are we in danger? For decades, lightning has been one of the most misunderstood forces in aviation. To the untrained eye, it is chaos, destruction, and inevitability. But to engineers and pilots, it is a challenge, one that technology has largely conquered. And so begins our story, a journey through fear, science, and human ingenuity. Because when lightning strikes a plane, the reality is not what you might think. For passengers sitting inside the dimly lit cabin, the lightning strike felt like the hand of nature itself had just reached out and slapped the airplane. To them, it was pure chaos: the sudden white flash, the booming crack, the shudder of metal. But in the world of aviation, that moment was something far less sinister. Lightning striking an airplane isn't rare. In fact, experts estimate that each commercial airliner is struck by lightning at least once a year on average. This statistic sounds terrifying at first glance, but it is the very reason airplanes are designed to endure such encounters. Engineers and safety regulators assume it will happen, so they prepare for it. When a bolt of lightning meets a metal fuselage soaring through the sky, it doesn't linger inside like electricity searching for victims. Instead, it follows a path along the aircraft's exterior, entering at one point, often the nose, wingtip, or tail, and exiting at another. The plane essentially becomes a giant conductor, allowing the electrical current to flow around it rather than through it. Inside, where passengers sit, the strike is more show than substance. The flickering lights and sudden noises are frightening, yes, but the actual danger is minimal. Still, this reality didn't come easily. Aviation learned the hard way. In the early days of powered flight, lightning was a genuine menace. Aircraft were small, fragile, and built with materials that offered little resistance to nature's fury. Stories of wooden biplanes catching fire or being torn apart by storms haunted the pioneers of aviation. The 1930s and 40s, in particular, saw several tragic incidents where lightning led to catastrophic failures. The most infamous early case occurred in 1963, when Pan Am Flight 214, a Boeing 707, was struck by lightning shortly after takeoff from Baltimore. The bolt ignited fuel vapors in one of the wing tanks, causing a massive explosion that tore the plane apart in midair, killing all 81 on board. For the aviation world, it was a devastating wake-up call. From that tragedy, however, came revolution. Regulators and engineers began to redesign aircraft fuel systems, adding protective measures to prevent sparks and explosions. Over the following decades, technology advanced to the point where lightning no longer posed the existential threat it once had. By the late 20th century, new materials, better grounding, and advanced testing had made airplanes not just resistant to lightning, but almost indifferent to it. So what exactly happens in that split second when lightning latches onto a plane? High-speed cameras and controlled laboratory tests have shown the sequence in remarkable detail. First, the airplane itself often triggers the lightning. Flying through turbulent, electrically charged clouds, the metallic body disturbs the natural balance of positive and negative charges in the atmosphere. A leader bolt extends from the plane, reaching out like a glowing finger until it connects with an opposite charge in the cloud. Once contact is made, a brilliant flash races across the aircraft's skin. Temperatures along the strike channel can reach 30,000 Kelvin, hotter than the surface of the sun. Yet because the charge stays on the outside of the fuselage, the people inside are shielded, protected by the very structure they fear is vulnerable. In the cockpit, the pilots may see a burst of light brighter than any camera flash, followed by instruments briefly flickering. Modern avionics are hardened against surges, so a strike is more an annoyance than a crisis. Still, procedures dictate that the crew report the event, and upon landing, maintenance teams inspect the airframe for burn marks, tiny exit holes, or surface damage. It's a sobering reminder that, while designed to survive, airplanes are not invincible. Lightning leaves its mark, just not in ways that typically endanger human life. Despite all the science, numbers, and reassurances, there remains one undeniable truth. To a passenger, a lightning strike feels like the end of the world. Imagine sitting at 35,000 feet, encased in aluminum, and suddenly watching nature unleash its rawest force just outside your window. The cabin shakes, the lights flicker, and for a fleeting moment, you wonder if the wing is still intact. Even if safety statistics prove otherwise, fear doesn't obey logic. A retired flight attendant once described it perfectly. The first time I saw lightning strike a plane, I thought it was over. By the 20th time, it was just Tuesday. For the crew, experience transforms terror into routine. But for the average traveler, flying only a handful of times per year, a lightning strike is unforgettable, a story retold for decades. And yet, that is where the beauty of aviation engineering lies. Fear meets preparation, panic collides with resilience, and the result is survival. Today, international aviation authorities demand that every new aircraft model undergo rigorous lightning tests. Engineers simulate strikes, deliberately blasting wings, fuselages, and electronic systems with massive electrical currents to ensure they can take the hit. These tests don't merely confirm survival, they prove functionality, guaranteeing that after a strike, the aircraft can keep flying safely to its destination. In a way, lightning has become a partner in progress. Each crackling bolt across the sky is not just a threat but a teacher, reminding aviation that nature's fury must always be respected, never ignored. The irony, of course, is that lightning strikes are rarely the cause of modern aviation accidents. While passengers clutch their armrests in fear at every storm, the true dangers often lie elsewhere: mechanical failures, human error, or unexpected turbulence. Lightning, for all its drama, is now one of the least deadly risks in the sky. As the plane from our opening story steadied itself above the storm clouds, its engines humming with calm persistence, passengers slowly exhaled. Some laughed nervously. Others whispered prayers. For the pilots, it was simply another reminder of why they trusted the aircraft they flew. The storm had passed, but the memory of that blinding strike would remain with those on board forever. And yet, the question still lingered: if lightning strikes aren't truly dangerous anymore, why do they still terrify us so much? That answer lies in stories, some tragic, some miraculous, of airplanes that faced nature's fury and lived to tell the tale. The cabin lights had steadied, the engines roared on, and the passengers aboard our fictional flight began to convince themselves that perhaps the danger had passed. Yet the fear remained. For every nervous smile or quiet sigh of relief, there lingered an unspoken question: had other planes been so lucky? The truth is, the history of aviation carries with it a collection of unforgettable encounters with lightning, some tragic, others miraculous. These stories shaped the safeguards that make modern air travel so resilient today. The year was 1963, and commercial aviation was entering its golden age. Jetliners like the Boeing 707 connected continents with unprecedented speed and comfort. Flying had become glamorous, even routine, for many. But one stormy night in December, the illusion of invincibility shattered. Pan Am Flight 214 departed Baltimore for Philadelphia under threatening skies. As the aircraft climbed, witnesses on the ground reported seeing a flash of lightning pierce the storm clouds. Moments later, a fireball lit up the night as the Boeing 707 disintegrated in midair. Investigators determined that the lightning had ignited vapors in a partially empty fuel tank, causing an explosion that ripped the plane apart. All 81 people on board perished. The accident shook the aviation world. How could something so common, lightning, turn a state-of-the-art jet into ashes in seconds? Regulators demanded answers, and engineers set about finding them. The tragedy of Pan Am 214 became a turning point. Fuel tanks were redesigned, venting systems re-engineered, and safety standards rewritten. It was a lesson paid for with lives, but it ensured that future generations would never face the same risk. Not every story ended in tragedy. Sometimes, lightning struck with fury, yet airplanes proved their resilience in astonishing ways. In 1993, a Boeing 737 flying through a thunderstorm over the Netherlands was struck directly on the nose cone. The lightning bolt traveled across the fuselage and exploded out the tail, leaving behind charred metal and a gaping hole. Passengers screamed as the cabin filled with the acrid smell of burned wiring. For several terrifying minutes, the crew battled failing instruments and partial radio loss. But the plane held together. Despite its wounds, it landed safely, and every passenger walked away. Investigators later marveled at how well the airframe had withstood the strike. The damage looked catastrophic on the outside, but the systems designed to isolate and contain electrical surges had worked as intended. Stories like this reinforced a powerful truth: while lightning could scar an airplane, modern engineering kept it from destroying one. Each incident, whether tragic or survivable, fed into a continuous cycle of learning. Engineers studied burn marks, traced electrical pathways, and built ever more robust protection systems. Bonding and grounding: every panel, every rivet, every metallic surface of a plane is carefully bonded to ensure lightning current flows smoothly across the structure without sparking. Fuel tank inerting: after Pan AM 214, regulators required systems to prevent flammable vapors from forming in fuel tanks. Today, inert gases are pumped in to eliminate the risk of explosions. Avionics shielding, sensitive electronics are encased in protective housings, designed to shrug off electromagnetic interference from lightning. Composite challenges. With modern aircraft like the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350 built from lightweight composites, engineers had to rethink lightning protection entirely. Thin metal meshes embedded in the fuselage now ensure that even carbon fiber can safely conduct a strike. These innovations transformed lightning from a mortal threat into an expected, survivable event. Yet, no matter how safe the technology becomes, the human experience of lightning remains deeply emotional. For those caught inside, every flash feels personal. Take the story of Emily, a passenger on a transatlantic flight in 2015. She described the strike in vivid detail. It was like the sky had ripped in half right outside my window. The whole cabin glowed white, and for a second, I thought we were falling. My daughter grabbed my arm and screamed. The flight attendants were calm, but I couldn't stop shaking until we landed. Technically, the strike caused nothing more than superficial scorch marks. But emotionally, it was a near-death experience for those on board. Emily said she didn't fly again for years. Such reactions are common. Lightning speaks to something primal, an ancient fear of the storm, magnified by the unnatural act of flying through it. Throughout history, lightning has carried symbolic weight. Ancient civilizations saw it as a weapon of the gods, Zeus, Thor, or Indra wielding power over the skies. Even in modern times, the flash of lightning across an airplane wing feels otherworldly, as if the gods themselves are reminding humanity of its fragility. But unlike the myths, aviation has demystified the danger. It doesn't mean we fear less, it means we survive more. Each successful strike endured is a testament to how far human ingenuity has come. As climate change alters weather patterns, thunderstorms are becoming more unpredictable in certain regions. Pilots train extensively to avoid the worst of them, but aviation experts predict lightning encounters may grow more frequent. Yet even with this increase, the industry's confidence remains high. With continuous testing, advanced materials, and decades of accumulated knowledge, airplanes are more capable than ever of standing up to nature's fury. For the passenger gripping the armrest, it may never feel routine. But for the engineers, the regulators, and the pilots, lightning is no longer a mystery, it is a challenge conquered. The passengers from our opening story didn't know it, but the system had already saved them. That single blinding strike, terrifying as it felt, was an event the aircraft had been built to endure 100 times over. Still, the story doesn't end there. Because while technology can harden metal and shield electronics, it cannot erase the fear in human hearts. To truly understand why lightning continues to haunt the skies, we must look deeper, into the psychology of fear, and into the rare, extraordinary cases where luck and engineering met fate head-on. For the engineers, a lightning strike on an aircraft is a solvable equation, measured in amperes, milliseconds, and structural conductivity. For the pilots, it's a routine challenge, anticipated in checklists and handled with practiced calm. But for the people in the cabin, the parents clutching children, the business travelers staring out the windows, the elderly couple holding hands, lightning is something else entirely. It is raw fear. Psychologists who study flight anxiety often describe lightning as a trigger event. Even passengers who normally enjoy flying can be shaken by the violent crack of thunder or the blinding flash that seems to explode just outside their window. Dr. Sarah Klein, an aviation psychologist, once explained, "When you're strapped into a seat, 35,000 feet above the ground, you surrender control. Add a sudden flash of lightning, and the brain interprets it as a mortal threat, even if the plane is perfectly safe." It's not just imagination. The human body reacts physically, heart rate spikes, muscles tense, adrenaline floods the bloodstream. Passengers may cry, pray, or freeze in silence, waiting for reassurance. This psychological storm inside the cabin can sometimes be as powerful as the meteorological one outside. For pilots, however, the reality is very different. Training ensures that a lightning strike is treated as a serious but manageable event. From their perspective, check systems. After a strike, pilots quickly scan instruments to ensure no critical failures occurred. Communicate calmly. They update air traffic control and reassure the cabin crew. Continue or divert. Depending on the severity, they either proceed or head for the nearest suitable airport. Veteran pilot Captain James Whitaker once said, "Most lightning strikes are over before you even register them. We're trained to treat them like turbulence, uncomfortable, yes, but not catastrophic. The passengers feel fear, we feel procedure." This disconnect, passengers overwhelmed by fear, pilots calmly following a checklist, highlights the unique psychology of flight. It also explains why cabin crews are trained not only in safety but in emotional reassurance. Flight attendants play a crucial role in bridging the emotional gap. While pilots manage the aircraft, cabin crew manage the people. Imagine a scene: lightning flashes, the cabin jolts, and murmurs of panic ripple through the passengers. A flight attendant moves calmly down the aisle, checking belts, offering smiles, answering whispered questions. Their calmness is contagious. Many passengers later recall the professionalism of the crew as the single factor that kept them grounded in reality. In this way, human reassurance becomes just as vital as engineering resilience. Why does lightning inspire such disproportionate fear compared to other dangers? Statistically, turbulence causes more injuries, and mechanical issues are far rarer than most people think. Yet lightning holds a special place in the collective imagination. Experts suggest 3 reasons. Visibility. Lightning is spectacularly dramatic. Unlike hidden dangers, it announces itself with light and sound. Primal associations. Thunderstorms have frightened humans for millennia. That fear is hardwired. Illusion of fragility. Watching a bolt strike an airplane wing feels like watching a sword hit thin metal. Even if the wing is strong, the mind interprets it as vulnerable. This gap between perception and reality means education is key. When passengers understand that airplanes are designed to endure lightning hundreds of times stronger than natural strikes, some of the fear subsides. Behind the scenes, pilots undergo rigorous training for lightning events. In flight simulators, they practice responding to electrical failures, communication loss, and unusual instrument readings. They learn to rely on redundant systems when one fails. Trust backup instruments if digital displays flicker. Keep passengers informed without spreading alarm. By the time a pilot takes command of a commercial flight, they've rehearsed dozens of what-if scenarios involving storms. This preparation ensures that even if lightning causes a system failure, say, knocking out a radio or damaging a sensor, the crew can adapt swiftly. One famous case occurred in 2012, when a regional jet flying into Munich was struck by lightning. The strike disabled the autopilot and temporarily disrupted navigation. The captain, a former military pilot, remained calm as alarms blared. He took manual control, guided the aircraft through turbulence, and landed safely. Afterward, passengers described the experience as terrifying, but also praised the crew. One passenger wrote, "The plane shook, lights flickered, and people screamed. But the captain's voice never wavered. He told us exactly what was happening. That calmness probably saved me from a panic attack." Such stories highlight a crucial truth: while machines protect the aircraft, it is human composure that protects the people. Around the world, cultures interpret lightning differently. In some places, it is seen as divine anger, in others, as a symbol of renewal. Passengers from diverse backgrounds bring these associations on board with them. For instance, a traveler from Greece might think of Zeus's wrath. A traveler from Scandinavia might think of Thor's hammer. Someone from India may recall Indra, the storm god. These subconscious narratives amplify the drama of the experience. Aviation safety is global, but human psychology is deeply personal. So where does this leave us? We've explored the engineering marvels that protect airplanes, the historical tragedies that shape those protections, and the psychology that keeps lightning strikes haunting the imagination. And yet, the ultimate question remains, what really happens when lightning strikes a plane today? The answer lies in the final act, a synthesis of science, history, and human experience. It is where fact meets myth, and where we uncover the truth behind the flashes that still light up the skies. When lightning splits the night sky, carving jagged veins of white fire across the heavens, the question lingers in every passenger's mind, what if it hits us? Despite decades of engineering, thousands of successful flights, and mountains of data, the fear persists. It's not entirely irrational. Lightning is one of nature's most violent forces. A single bolt can reach 30,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. The raw numbers stagger the imagination, hundreds of millions of volts, tens of thousands of amperes. And yet, when this celestial spear strikes an airplane, something remarkable happens, almost nothing at all. The secret lies in the design. Modern aircraft are essentially flying Faraday cages. Their outer skin, made primarily of conductive materials like aluminum, ensures that electricity travels around the fuselage instead of through it. Here's how it works in practice. Entry point. The lightning usually attaches to a sharp edge, the nose cone, wingtip, or tail. Travel. Current flows across the fuselage's surface, hugging the skin like water along a pipe. Exit point. The bolt leaves at another extremity, often trailing sparks as it departs. Inside the cabin, passengers may see a flash, hear a bang, or feel a jolt. But the electricity never penetrates the pressure vessel where they sit. For all its fury, the storm is kept at arm's length. That doesn't mean aircraft emerge entirely unscathed. Engineers who inspect planes after strikes often find hitting on the nose cone, small burn marks where the bolt attached, scorching near exits, charred paint at wingtips or tail fins, minor electronics resets, a flicker in cockpit displays or a temporary loss of sensor readings. Most of these issues are cosmetic or easily reparable. Still, aviation regulations are strict. Any lightning strike must be reported, and the plane is thoroughly inspected before flying again. In the rarest cases, lightning can disable systems. Historically, strikes have knocked out radios, damaged navigation equipment, or even punctured fuel tanks. But redundancy is the shield of aviation. Modern aircraft carry multiple backups for every critical system, ensuring that no single failure endangers the flight. The numbers tell the clearest story. Commercial airplanes in the U.S. are struck by lightning about once per year per plane. Worldwide, that means thousands of strikes occur annually. Fatal crashes caused directly by lightning in the last 4 decades. 0. The last confirmed lightning-caused disaster occurred in 1963, when a Boeing 707 caught fire after a bolt ignited fuel vapors. Since then, fuel tanks have been redesigned, electrical bonding improved, and lightning tests made mandatory. In other words, lightning may be frequent, but it has been engineered out of the serious threat category. And yet, statistics alone cannot erase fear. Humans are not wired to think in probabilities, we think in images. The crack of thunder shakes our bones. The flash of white light sears our retinas. The thought of being struck at altitude awakens primal terror. It's no surprise that surveys show lightning among the top 3 triggers of in-flight anxiety, alongside turbulence and engine noises. But here lies the paradox. What feels like the most dangerous moment is often one of the least threatening. Pilots are the ones who must bridge this gap between perception and reality. Captain Laura Henderson, who has logged more than 15,000 flight hours, put it this way. Lightning sounds violent, but it's just part of the job. We expect it, we train for it, and the plane is built to take it. The real danger isn't the strike, it's the panic it causes if passengers don't understand how safe they actually are. Her words echo across the industry. Calm leadership, reinforced by engineering design, turns a terrifying flash into a manageable event. It wasn't always this way. The tragedies of the 1960s forced aviation to confront its vulnerability. Engineers redesigned fuel systems, improved bonding wires, and tested aircraft in artificial lightning labs capable of reproducing the power of nature itself. Today, new aircraft models undergo hundreds of simulated strikes during certification. Airbus and Boeing literally fire bolts into their prototypes to ensure resilience. And the future looks even safer. With advances in carbon fiber composites, manufacturers have developed embedded metallic meshes that conduct lightning safely across lighter, stronger airframes. Let's address some of the myths passengers still carry. Lightning can blow a wing off. False. Wings are built to absorb strikes without structural compromise. The cabin will get electrified. False. The Faraday cage effect prevents electricity from entering. Pilots lose all control when lightning hits. False. At worst, temporary disruptions occur, but redundant systems maintain safety. It's better to avoid flying in storm season. Misleading. Airlines avoid severe storm systems anyway, and lightning is factored into normal operations. Reality, as often happens, is far less dramatic than the myth, but no less fascinating. Still, facts don't erase the emotional memory of being inside a storm. Ask any frequent flyer, and you'll hear vivid recollections. The sky lit up like a camera flash. I thought we'd been hit by a missile. I grabbed the hand of the stranger next to me. And afterward, when the plane landed safely, most added the same reflection, it wasn't as bad as I thought. This lived experience, fear followed by relief, is part of what makes air travel such a paradoxical human adventure. So what really happens when lightning strikes a plane? The bolt hits. The current skates across the skin. Systems absorb or deflect the energy. The aircraft continues almost as if nothing occurred. The danger is not in the lightning itself, but in our imagination of it. A passenger sees apocalypse in a flash of white. A pilot sees a checklist. An engineer sees a solved equation. In the end, the truth about lightning strikes is both simple and profound. They are spectacular to witness, unnerving to experience, but largely harmless to modern aviation. As the plane descends through clearing skies, passengers peer out at a horizon washed clean by rain. The storm is behind them now, both outside the aircraft and inside their minds. Some will tell the story later as a brush with disaster. Others will recall the professionalism of the crew. A few may even marvel at the science that allowed them to ride lightning itself. And somewhere, far above, another bolt cracks open the heavens, searching for its next target, only to find another machine of metal and human ingenuity, ready to shrug it off and keep flying.